So we want to work with our content, as you can see on screen, whereby we are saying we've got the following name. So it's first name, surname. We've got physical address. We've got movies rented. We've got salutation. So we are using this as a reference to then get to see how we can split this further. Okay. So the next thing is we're saying the first normal form tells us that each table should contain a single value. Each record needs to be unique. So we then need to make sure we break down our table. So how do we break down our table? We first create a primary key, and then this identifies the records uniquely. An SQL key is a single column or combination of multiple columns used to uniquely identify rows or tuples in the table. So our key also has some attributes that we need to work with. It cannot be null, it must be unique, and the key should rarely be changed. And the primary key must be given a value when a new record is inserted. Okay, so here's the changes in our table. First table is this one. We have full names, physical address, movies rented, salutation. Second table, we have the same elements, but we are now saying each rental has got its own record. So each rental has its own record, and our table is in first normal form. Let's get creating a database and we work with it. So we've got two options. Which database do you want us to use? We can use MySQL, we can use Access. Okay, let's work with Access. Right? So we want to create our movie rental. That's what we want to create. And we want to have to create our table. So initially, like we said, we want to create our table, and the table that we want is to be in first normal form. So first normal form simply means we are creating our table, and our table should have specific attributes. So we want to have a key, and our primary key should be based on our attributes. So what can be our primary key given that information? First names, physical address, movies rented, salutation. Right. We said our primary key is a unique identifier. So we cannot have the address. We also cannot have the name. We can also not have the movie. We can also not have salutation. So we need to create our key. We are working with what is there, but we're going to modify it to suit a database. Because we've got the full names, we've got the physical address, we've got the movies rented, we've got the salutation. So first of all, we need to name our table. Right. At least you have it on your phones. I'll be referencing each element as we go. So we need the full name, the address, the movie rented, and the salutation. So we come to our access database. We want to create that information. But our access will have a problem because it needs a primary key. So let's start by naming our value. Automatically, it gives you an ID because we might need to have an ID. But let's go to design view. Or maybe I should have started by how we created a database. But since we are recording this, I'm sure you can see how we started. We just went to file and then we created a database, we gave it a name, and then we came to this particular spot. So we right click, we go to design view, we call this TPL customer so that we can get to name our database. So we want to remove that row. We want to put first names. We want to put the address. We want the movie rented. We want, what else is there? Salutation. Okay. But now, there's a new thing we also now need to learn. When we are creating our database, we create our database in a slightly different manner. We need to know the entity. That's fine. But at this particular instance, we also now need to know the data type of that entity. So, for example, if we are saying we want the name, we need to know what comes with the name. If we are saying we want a date, we need to know what comes with the date. If we are saying we want a number, we need to know what comes with the number. So, to begin with, we've got our first names, which is the name of the field, which is field name. We then put it first names. We've got the data type, where our data types are different. We've got short text, long text, number, date, currency, auto number, object, hyperlink. So the first name is a short text. The address can also be a short text. Same goes for the movie and the salutation. Are we together? Okay. So let's save and let's go to the data sheet view. So here we then want to put the name, we want to put the address, we want the movie rented, and we want the salutation. So we are not going to use their information. Let's create our own. So we've got the first individual. We want the address. We want the movie rented. We want their salutation. So that then becomes the first table. Right. We have done our table now. When we are doing this in our own way, we want to use certain items. So yes, access help, but the platform that we want to work with is MySQL. So we might need to open a MySQL platform so that we can see how we can also create a table in MySQL, because we then need to know how our MySQL works. So I'll open a Word document and show you how some of these things will then work. In our creation of the table, we then want to state the following. Create, and then we say table, and then we give the table name, which can be custom. From there, we then want to create the elements that go with our table. So we then now need to state each of the values that we want to work with. So for example, if we've got first name, we then also give it as character. If we've got last name, we put it as character. If we've got movie, rented, it can also be character. If we've got salutation, we also then put character. So we now need to know how to actually create our database using some commands. That's what we want to work. Let's see how we do that. We've got an access way of doing it. We've also got a SQL way of doing it. Right. So let's open a platform we use for MySQL. Let's open a platform we use for MySQL. So that is our MySQL platform. But at the same time, we then also need to know some of these things that we. Let's open another script for SQL, which gives us how some of these elements will be working. Right. So that is the content we need to learn, or that is the context we want to learn. We want to be able to say we can create a table. We then give the table its name. We then give the attributes their name and the type of information we want to have, including what we might allow or not allow within our table. So for example, we've got create table. We want to create a table called alpha, where in our table we've got an ID, and our ID should contain an integer value which has got 11 as the size, and it should not be null. We want to create a title, and our title should be able to have variable character, which should have 250, and that is not null. We also want to create an artist. That nice word that I said last time, and you love So I'm not saying. We've also got outward path. We've got the type and the not. Right. So what this basically means is that that's a way we can create our table. Not now simply stands for we want to have a value. So the moment you want to enter a record, let's say as a record one, without having any information, you don't have that. Why? Because there's no information you want to enter. So for example, let's say you set a photo number. You are assigned a time and a key value, but you do not have a record. So for example, each time that you then increment your time, you will not have a record that links to that particular value. So the moment we are saying it takes each value, if there's an empty field, it should let you know before you take it to the value. So from there, we are then going to the next bit, which is the interesting bit. The next bit we also want to work with is adding information. So we want to add information to a specific table that we've created. So we've created a table, it's called album. We want to now add information into that table. So we then insert into album and then keep the table type so that we can then be able to insert whatever information we want to add to our data. So for example, with our insert, we then say at this point we've created a table called albums and it contains this information. It's got ID, it's got title, it's got artist, it's got that word, it's got artwork part. And it from there we then want to enter information into this existing table. So we want to go insert into, we then get albums, and then our albums will then have our ID, our title, our artist, that word, and our artwork part. So what this then means now is we want to then insert information into our table. At the same time, we can also have a statement that hides the update. So we want to update a specific record. Let's say the record that we've got already exists, but we want to update it. Why would we want to update our record? For example, you can be like someone who has changed address. So the moment you change your address, they want to update the new address. So that's one reason for updating. In some instances, you can then have a new title. For example, myself, you might then call me Duke Papai. And you know that then changes everything. So I'll come and say, no. My title is now this. So you now need to update it or change it. In some instances, it might also be the same order. Some of you have done this before. If you are picky or if you are particular, you can then say when you buy eggs, for example, in the shop, and you find that they are rotten. You come back and you say, no, these eggs are rotten, I don't want them. You come back to the store, I have brought your eggs, they are rotten. Look at them, right? But in the store, we have already said you have purchased the eggs, right? But the database is saying the eggs have been purchased. So we now need to say we want to change them. We want to give a refund. How then do we match the sale and the refund? Does it mean that the first receipt is deleted, or we need to have a record of the first receipt and a record of the second receipt to then see what is happening? In some instances, you might buy something, you buy it in a hurry. It's maybe a pair of shoes. When you get home, it's gone. Or you bought shoes for someone who's not there. When you get home, they don't fit. You want to change them. So that is why we then need to at least understand how our databases work and how we can insert or update or change certain attributes from our database. So let's get creating a database in MySQL, and we see how that works. So let's look at access. We had named our database movies database. So we go to new in our MySQL. Remember, I'm recording this. All you need to do is go back to this if needs be and work with what I'll be doing as we are recording. So I've got movies, and then we put DB, which makes that our database. We go to create, and then our database is created. So at the same time, we can also be able to create our database in SQL purely. But for the sake of time, we will create our database fast and easier this way. So we want to work with our create that we saw previously, which is here. Create table, and we want to have the information we want to add in our table. So I'll just copy this and then edit it in our SQL. Right. So create is one of your questions, but we need record that. Nongozi umwe na mungo no no that say something that more create a says table that that's why we are doing it. Imwe wangomera to create table chakati mweza machi bitsenyu nezvikudiwa zvacho maana mama mapasa that. Right. Tapa create bid. Right. So let's right. So that is our create. Unfortunately, it's very small. I don't know if this one is better. You can see this one. Okay, so let's actually work with our create statement there. I'll just be copying what I see so that we can be able to follow. So we create table, and then with our table, we want to give it a name. We said the name is custom, right? With our table customer, we then now need to put our brackets, and then we now need to add. I can simply copy that one because it's too long for me to type out. And we then start putting our content as we proceed. So the first aspect we want actually, I'm realizing this is the wrong element that I've used. We need those. I don't know what these are called. right? So we need the first name, first names. We need to have the type, which is var char. Uh, we remember we said this is the name of the column. Yes. The slanted commas. I'm not sure which. Ah, okay. I think I see where it is. If you go to your keyboard, mind the slanted comma is on the numbers. Right. You see where there is this five. There's a slanted comma there. Yes. So we say the first element we want is first names. We've got a variable character. We can also say this is 100, and then we say not now, like that. So maybe let's explain why we are doing it. We said the first element is the title of our column. The next element is the attribute of our column, which is what we expect to find within that particular table. The next element is what we expect the table to contain. So we want to always have information within that particular column. So we are giving a constraint to say at any given point in time, we need to have information within that particular column and within that particular cell. The next thing we want to do is the next element, which is after first name. What did we have? Did we have the address or the movie? So it's the address. Address is also var char. We open and close brackets. We can put 100 as well. We have not now. The next element we have is the movies. So we say movies rented. We put var char. We open and we close our brackets. We also put it as 100, and it's not now. And then the last one is salutation. Our salutation is var char. Right. So simply put, that is what we want to have as our creative. So let's see if we've got our code right. Yes, yes. Apa ndatikozviitira kuti tizinyore muchiona because SQL kwacho it becomes a little bit smaller. So here we just use it for a reference point. So make sure your create table looks like that. So we go to we select everything. We go to our run SQL. We save, or rather we paste. and then we click on go. If everything is in order, our table should be created. And when the table is created, it gives us the following. Let me just try and increase the size. Right. So the event that we've done this properly is supposed to tell us that you have successfully created your query and your query has created a table. So what are we saying? We are saying the moment we are working with the query, we want to be able to create a table. We can create a table this way, whereby we simply put create table. But if we are then doing it as a query, we then need to know what elements we want to include in the table. Because the query might create a new table or might get information from existing tables. So the create table aspect gives us the table and the attributes that we want to have within that specific table. Okay, let us proceed. We want to then do an insert, and then that will be the last bit of our lesson. We want to do an insert, and then that's the last bit of our lesson. There's a reason why we need this. I think I'll also add some more because of your learning. So please go and refer to the video or video after this one so that you get to learn. So we now want to get into the next bit, which is the insert. So our insert, we said we follow the same attributes that we have put. We've got the table name. The table name, we've given it a name. The attributes of that particular table, we've also given them a name. So we then now need to say insert into, and then we put the attributes that we want to work with, and we'll be able to get some information that we can work with and use. So our insert statement will be as follows. Insert into the table name. Oops, we want to get that table. So we want to insert into, we put the, I don't know what they called, customer. So we want to insert into customer. And for our customer now, we need to have brackets with the titles of our columns. Right, what are the titles of our columns? What did we put as the first column? What is the first column? What is the first column? And now to page another three. Right, what is the first column? First name is the first column. What is the next column? What is the next column? And what is the last column? Salutation. Right? After this, we then type out values. And then in our values, we need to put them in the order that we've got our columns at. So maybe let's put 2 sets of values. So our values will be as follows. Right. So we now need the following. The first element would be our first names, which can be right. That's the first element. We need an address as well. We need the movie rented. We also need a salutation, right? We need uh, the next element, right? And this person stays at, this is not their address. I repeat, this is not their address. This is not their address. It's just an address, right? And the movie they rented, what is the movie they rented? Right, they rented this movie, right? And then salutation, right? So if we've done this correctly, then our insert should work. So we copy, we go to our right, we go back to our code, we select SQL, we paste our code, we click on go. Yes, as I expected. Our code has got some. Okay. So how do we put our first name? It is saying insert into customer, and the first column has got a problem. So let's see how we're done our customer, and it's actually first names. So we need to change the syntax and say first name like that. If we click on go, I think now everything is okay. We have done our insert. So what has our two queries done for us so far. In our movies database, we have created customer. Let me open in a new tab because this we might need to refer to it. We have created a table called customer. And within that table called customer, we created rows, first name, address, movies rented, salutation. And then in that particular customer, we now have the following information because we've inserted it into our database. So we've inserted Tom Bambo, their address, the movies rented, and their salutation. That is what we have done. But because of our time and your time, I think we can round up and call it a day. Are there any questions?